Hello YouTube, this is Froogle. This is an incredibly hard video to make from a technical perspective and also from a personal one. I have to admit I made a hideous mistake. A while ago I put up an Oculus Rift video, and in that video I said that I couldn't see Oculus Rift working with something like FSX or Prepared because you need such a high frame rate. You need, at that time, 75 frames per second, now 90 frames per second. And with most of our sims running between 20 and 30 frames per second, once you add all the add-ons on, there are people right now typing in the comment section, I get 179 frames per second. No, you don't. Not if you have FTX Global and Rex 4 Texture Direct and Rex Soft Clouds and Active Sky Next and a PMDGX. You don't. Anyway, the general problem is the sim is too slow for virtual reality. And I said I was aware of a solution called Flyinside, which is actually a Kickstarter project, the brainchild of a chap called Dan Church, and I said that that was a neat trick, but I don't see that being in any way useful. Dan is a wonderful chap, and he reached out to me on Twitter afterwards and very politely said, basically I'm a moron, which I am, and said I should take a look. So I did, and he sent me Flyinside for FSX and for Prepared, and I've been following it for quite some time. And then earlier this year, of course, Oculus decided to launch the product, and we ended up moving from DK2 to Oculus Rift CV1, which would be that right there. Now, I am one of the people who got royally screwed by Oculus, so although I love this product, I can't recommend anybody become a customer of the company, to be honest. I'll go into that in a different video when I cover the Oculus Rift CV1 in more detail. Great product, awful company. But anyway, now that CV1 is out and consumers are finally, in very small numbers, getting their hands on this, it is time to do a video. So in this video, I'm going to show you Oculus Rift CV1 with Flyinside. I'll give the whole point of the video away right now. Here's the spoiler. Spoiler alert. It is the most astounding piece of software I have ever used. It literally blows your mind. It is absolutely incredible. Let's take a look. Alright, so here we are. The sim is loaded and you can currently see it. Now the way Flyinside works is it's actually very, very clever on a technical level with the UI. When it first fires up, the Rift boots up. So if I look in here right now, I should be able to see some stuff. You won't. Yeah, I can see clouds and I can see waiting for simulator and everything else from Flyinside. So I'm going to take that off right now. And what you would do, now I'm filming this in Prepared. I did a live stream of this with the DK2 using FSX. This time around I'm using Prepared because I've not done that before until actually today. And it's very, very nice. I will tell you right now though, in terms of performance and frame rates, FSX is way better than Prepared. Way better. Dovetail actually did a really good job of optimizing FSX to the point that it is now the performance choice really compared to all the other ones out there. Okay, so I'm going to fly from Sanford. I'm going to set it to earlier today. I am running Active Sky Next. I'm going to set this to fair weather because I have run this a few times and sometimes it gets out of sync. And we'll click on start. Now, what you're going to see is kind of awkward. I'm going to leave the Rift off for a second just to talk you through what I can see, which is what you can see before I put this on, at which point you can't see what I can see. Okay, so right now, what you're seeing is Prepared loading with a consolidated view of what I would see through the Oculus Rift. And it's very cool. Now, it is reduced frame rate. So what I get in here, and I'll explain how this works in a second, but what I get in here is a very, very smooth update. Very cool, very, very awesome and silky smooth. But what you're seeing on this preview is only 15 frames per second. That's just because it's a preview. It's designed for people like me doing things like this to give you a glimpse of what I can see. So if I grab this for a second and recenter my view, there we go. So you can imagine with this on, looking around, this is what I'm actually seeing in my two eyeballs. But there's a very, very neat trick in this. I'm going to put this on now. And I can't see you, you can see me. What you do, actually I'm going to grab some headphones as well, I'm going to need those. By the way, Oculus Rift still has a little gap right here that you can use to see things, which is very, very helpful. Alright, headphones are on, I actually can't hear anything. I'm hoping that's just because the engines aren't running and I've got my sound set up correctly. Let me just check here real quick, 1 second. Okay, so when you've got this on, the way it works is when you first run Flyinside, it asks you to set up a number of buttons, and it also asks you to register if you've bought it. You can download Flyinside for the Oculus Rift and for the HTC Vive and run it for 15 minutes in a demo mode, and then if you like it, go and buy it. I guarantee everybody will. It's absolutely amazing. But it asks you to set up some buttons. One of the buttons that it asked me to set up here was something called an interact button. I'm going to press that right now. I'm using a HOTAS, I'm using my Thrustmaster Warthog, and I have my interact button set as to pinky switch, so I'll click on that. Look at that. Now we have a menu. And I can look at this menu and do all sorts of wonderful things. So I can turn the volume up, for example, by clicking in here, which is very useful. Or I can click on menu. Now with the menu up, I can do something called show mirror, which I'm going to click right now. Let me just check my monitor. Great. Now you can see what I can actually see. So you're seeing a view on the left of the screen now, which is my left and my right eyeballs. And you can see there are menus here for load flight, select aircraft, go to airport, hide mirror, enter the sim. And then over on here, bindings. So let's go into bindings and show you how that all works. You can see I've set up my interact button here. I've got a button set up for recenter the view. I've got buttons set up for zoom, which is very, very useful. Let me scroll down a bit. And yeah, that's pretty much it. 4K resolution is recommended to use the magnifying glass. That's very cool. So all sorts of stuff you can do here. In addition, if we go back over to, is it menu? No. If we go over to sim, look at this. This is too cool. I'm not going to demo this. I had some problems with this earlier and I just don't want to look like a complete fool more on video. But import window is if you have stuff running on your desktop, like a PDF reader, for example, clicking on import window will bring that window into the sim. Now, although I'm not going to demo it, let me talk about how I used that. When I did a live stream with Flyinside and FSX and the Oculus Rift DK2, I actually managed to grab the Twitch live stream chat, pop it out as a window on my desktop, and then stick it on the seat next to me in the cockpit, which was the most crazy, surreal thing I think I've ever done. So I'll be flying along and simply look down to the right, and there's the Twitch chat, and I could interact with all my Twitch viewers while streaming wearing Oculus Rift, which is absolutely amazing. Anyway, let me show you what some of these buttons do. Let's go back into the sim. So I'm back in the sim, recenter my view. I have a button set up for zoom. If I click on that, I can zoom right in, and I can zoom right out, and it's silky smooth, and I just need to tap one button and it just works. Now with CV1, you can, it's a much better, it's night and day difference in the visuals between what we had in DK2 and this. It's much higher resolution. You can read stuff very easily, except right now, looking over there at the switches above the GPS, I can't read those. So if I click on zoom, now I can. I can zoom right in there and I can read them, and then click on zoom and come back out again, which is cool. So that's the next thing I want to talk about, actually. Looking around, just realized my sim is only getting about 30 or 40 frames per second, but my view here, now it is jerky in what you're seeing, okay? You gotta try to get your head around this a little bit. What you're seeing that I'm capturing on the monitors is not an exact view of what I'm seeing in the headset right here. What I have in the headset right here is silky smooth. It is way over 75 frames per second, and that's using a wonderful trick that Dan came up with. I think he came up with it, called Asynchronous Timewarp. Asynchronous Timewarp is a feature that's now built into the Oculus Rift runtime, and it's also used in DCS World. I don't know the technicalities. It doesn't really matter. It's basically voodoo magic, and it is incredible because it means that even in a slow-running sim like FSX, well, prepared more, you still get silky smooth frame rates inside the headset. So when you move, things move as they should. You don't get nauseous. It's fantastic. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this up. I'm going to turn the battery on, like so. And we'll turn the fuel booster on. There it goes. Mixture rich, prop full, crack the throttle. Let's run this over. I'm going to put the parking brake on while I'm here. All looking good there. Now there are buttons. Notice I've got a mouse that I'm currently moving around. There are buttons you can press to recenter the mouse and to show the mouse. So if ever you lose track of where the mouse is, Flyinside has some very handy buttons you can bind to bring it back, which is very, very useful indeed. So alternating go on, avionics, strobes, navs, landing, fuel boost off, panel lights off. Let's turn on all my avionics down here. As you can see, it's a little fiddly in some places. but by and large, everything works exactly the way it should. Alright, so I think we're good to go. Let's put my trim, set my trim. Go one stage of flaps. Now having a HOTAS, where you know where all the buttons are, is very, very useful indeed. Let's go and take off and fly around. We'll do one circuit and I can show you what this is like. Roughly. I mean, you can't get anything like the sense of immersion and depth that I'm currently getting with the Rift on. But hopefully you get a good approximation with those mirrored displays and everything on the screen. I hope. Speed's coming up, so we'll pull back on the stick. Now the first time you do this with Oculus Rift, it literally amazes. Never felt anything like it. To be flying a sim like Prepared or FSX, with the level of accuracy that we have in those two platforms, and the add-ons, and all the add-ons we've got for the graphics and the scenery, with a fully immersive headset, is absolutely jaw-dropping. I'll reduce my power to about 24. Reduce my prop to about 24, and you can see I'm not leaning in too much, and I can clearly see those numbers a little bit under 24 there. And then looking out the window, to be able to look sideways and see my control surfaces moving is beyond amazing. It's incredible. I'd really think that with a detailed add-on such as those from A2A, in particular actually those from A2A, the GA aircraft from A2A, you could actually build a really good home trainer with Oculus Rift CV1, Flyinside, and Prepared or FSX. I don't know any flight school that's got anything as good as this, as immersive as this. It's absolutely astounding, and my frame rate is still through the roof. In fact, if I press the interact button, you can see there, the sim is 28 frames, Oculus Rift 93 frames. Very, very good. That menu should fade out, I hope. There it goes. Now, I said that you could bring in windows from the desktop, which I'm not going to show you, but you can, and I will show you something. Let me just trim this aircraft here, so we're straight and level. Because with the Rift on and feeling this much immersion, you really also do feel a sense of vertigo. So if the aircraft were to suddenly get out of control and start dropping, you'd feel it. I'd feel it. I don't want to be sick. Not because the Rift is laggy, just from air sickness of an aircraft you're in doing something unexpected. Hang on. Alright, so let me pop open that menu again. You see this here? This little drag thing? Ah, it's not going to let me click it. Why? Let me click you. Oh, I need to do that. You see that? The same principle works with the windows that you're bringing off the desktop. I can move this as well. Just put it over there. There you go. So when I pop the menu up now, it's on the left wing, or I can put it down there in that seat. In fact, let's make it smaller. That looks good. So now the Flyinside menu, which is a window, is down there. If ever I need it, I just need to look down there and press the interact button. You do the same thing with windows that you pull in from the desktop, like PDF readers or Twitch chats or whatever else you're doing. Let's start our turn around here. Head back towards Sanford. You really feel this when it's not coordinated now. And like I said at the start of this video, the difference, excuse me, in visual quality between the development kit and the release version of Oculus is outstanding. And if you couple that with Flyinside, it's indescribable. I can't find the words. And I keep on mentioning Oculus Rift because that's what I've got, but I know this works with the HTC Vive as well. And the HTC Vive's technical specs for its displays are the same as Oculus Rift, so you're not going to see that much difference in visual quality. But everything else is going to work exactly the same. Let's see if I can bring this down to 1,000 feet. Bring the power back a little bit. How cool is this? If I wanted to look at that GPS now, I can just look at it and zoom. Get a really clear view. And then zoom out. Or, I can just lean in. Amazing. And that's the other thing with a VR headset and Flyinside, is you get a real sense of space. You know, this cockpit feels as cramped as the real one. It really does feel amazing. Combine this with something like Leap Motion, where you're using your hands to flick switches, and you have an incredible combination for realism, immersion, and training. I can't imagine anything better than this, including full fixed-base sims, other than the fact that they move. I don't really need this to move. Now, I had comments from people before, leading up to release of CV1, because I've been a long-time fan of virtual reality, saying, why not just get 3 big monitors, or 6 big monitors, or 9 big monitors, because the level of immersion is not the same. They are fixed in front of you. They don't respond to you. So I can't do that, you know, with monitors. I can't look behind me with monitors. Maybe I could. I certainly can't duck down and look underneath a switch or behind a joystick or something like that with a monitor. It's pretty crazy. In terms of Flyinside, it is just beyond amazing. Let me show you some more menus and other tweaks that you can do on this before we actually go for final and land back in Sanford. So, let's pop over the menu here. I've put that in a really bad place actually. Now I'm breaking my neck trying to look at it. There we go. So let's go over here to settings. We have a number of things we can do here. So resolution, I'm currently running at 2664 by 1586, which is the native resolution. And asynchronous time warp is running at high speed with possible artifacts. The monitor display, you can see there is 15 frames per second. Anti-aliasing is low, and field of view overdraw is 103 degrees. Let's I don't know what that does. Let's maybe make that a little bit bigger. Maybe let's say 110. Not sure what that does. VR, enable geometry, warp, smoothing, experimental. Don't know what that is, so I'm not going to mess with it. But you have a lot of things in here. So both eyes, include the lens distortion, yes. You have a lot of things in here to really customize your experience using Flyinside. It's very, very cool. Notice these things, reposition windows with open. If we go back up to bindings, we have keys, I think, for snapping windows as well as snapping mices. So there's show and hide the mouse cursor, recenter the mouse cursor, toggle night mode on and off, show the Flyinside window, hang about. Enable, disable hard hand tracking, so that's for leap motion stuff, very cool. World scale, don't know what that does. But you have a lot of options here, more than I'm aware of. Sim options or sim stuff there for like viewing my desktop or importing a window. Sim options here, and so on, and so on, and so on. Absolutely incredible tool. I'm probably not even touching the surface of what it can do. I'm just more interested. Wow. Okay. I changed the field of view. This just got even better. It feels wider. Everything feels wider and better. It's absolutely incredible. Frame rate's still good. It's still approaching 80. So changing that field of view did drop the frame rate, but it's given me a much better experience, a much better spatial experience. There's a term in virtual reality called presence. When you suddenly feel presence, when you feel like you're in the virtual world, you absolutely get that with Flyinside in FSX or Prepared. I still think I prefer FSX for using Flyinside just because the sim is faster. But if all you've got's Prepared, then you're going to get a great experience as well. I'm not having any problems with this at all. And it's so cool, I can just easily look back. And I know you can do that with Track IR. I know you can adjust Track IR's responsiveness to look over your shoulder. I get that. It's not the same though. It's not the same as actually looking exactly where the runway should be over your left or your right shoulder and seeing it there. That is an incredible feeling. Alright, so we are dropping down about 800 feet, no, 600 feet. Yeah, we're pretty low. Start slowing down. I'm going to put the speed brakes out. Amazing! Start banking this around, coordinate my turn, bring the nose up, so we are dropping like a brick and I really don't want to. I got a little carried away chatting to you guys. I get a good sense here of height, which you don't get out of a 2D monitor, ever. Because it's also flat, whereas with a 3D headset, where you have different images projected into each eye, you really do get a sense of depth and height, which is, again, very hard to describe. First stage of laps. We are pretty slow. Let's put the gear down. As we roll out here, I'm getting a big sense of my height right now and my speed and how low I am and how slow I am. Let's pour some power back in here. I've got to get my hands on the leap motion devices. I don't think I set my QNH, so my altimeter is actually wrong. I'm going to be using the VASI lights mainly for this and visual. Yeah, we're negative altitude right now. I should have set that up. Alright, next stage of flaps. Off the power. Trim. Let's see how we do on a landing. There is a crosswind. I can feel it. Because my entire field of view is filled up with a 3D image. Even the slightest drift left or right, you actually feel it in your core. It's the most incredible feeling. It really is astounding. And I'm getting a good sense of speed here as well. I'm actually going really quite fast, so really backing off the throttle now. And we're down. So again, as I said at the start, this is an incredibly tricky video to do, technically and personally, because what I'm seeing is not what you're seeing, and what you're seeing is a very, very, very poor facsimile or approximation of the experience I'm getting with an Oculus Rift on my face. But I hope it answers some questions at the very least. And again, I've got to stress what I said when I did that Oculus Rift video, that I don't see Oculus Rift ever working, ever working with virtual reality devices. It's completely wrong. Flyinside is an amazing project. Dan Church is an amazing developer. And if you have a headset, an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift, and you want to go flying in FSX or Prepared, you must get Flyinside. I'm going to put a link in the show notes below. You can check it out. As I said, there's a 15-minute demo. It does take a little bit of fiddling to set it up. You install it and you run the sim, and then you have to shut down the sim and run it and shut it down and run it and shut it down while it injects a whole bunch of stuff into the sim to make its magic work. But once it's done, it is the most mind-blowing experience I think I've ever had in virtual reality, beating even something like Elite Dangerous, which is a showcase product for virtual reality. Anyway, let me know in the comment section below if you are interested in yourself getting a VR headset and flying in FSX or Prepared, or are you going to stick to multi-monitors? What's your preference? As always, my name is Froogle. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you very soon.